We're talking some NFL draft rumors on today's show. I am Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports, because after the NFL Combine, some legends out there from The Athletic and ESPN put out their most recent mock drafts, and I wanted to react to who the Dolphins ended up taking, and that is what we're looking at. The Athletic's Dane Brugler dropped his first mock draft post-Combine, and then Jordan Reid of ESPN did a 2-round mock draft that we're going to react to. So 3 total prospects, because they did not have Miami taking the same one in either of these two, which is very happy for me, so we get to talk about more. But make sure you are following us over on Instagram at Dolphins Today IG. If you want to be covered on the Miami Dolphins between our YouTube videos, short form content, normal post as well, follow us at Dolphins Today IG. We're about 250 followers from 1,000. If we can get there during the offseason, it would be awesome. Go give us a follow, because we put even more content out over there. All right, the first mock draft we're going to look at is from Dane Brugler, who's one of the more respected draft analysts and insiders out there. And, well, in his mock draft, just one round, he had Miami selecting their Jevon Holland replacement. But it's not Malachi Starks or Jahdae Barron, who we've talked about quite a bit. It's actually Nick Emmanwori, the safety from South Carolina, who is rising up draft boards. I mean, every year you see prospects that come in and become just absolute risers due to their physical nature, their speed, their athleticism, the size. Armand Membu is one of them on the offensive line. Nick Emmanwori is the other one. It's hard to really put into perspective how good he performed, but let's just say this, folks. Not often that you see a perfect 10 on the RAS score, and that is what Nick put up. A ridiculous height and weight combination of 6'3", 220, bench 20, good arm length, but ran a freakish 4.38. But also, look at the explosion grade. Vertical, 43 inches, 9.98. The broad jump, 9.99. I mean, if you had to script a perfect Combine result, this is what it looks like. But he's also very productive. Like, he came into the Combine as a top 50 pick. This Combine performance only solidified him as a first-round selection. You looked at him, a very productive collegiate career, 3-year starter, put up gaudy numbers, 6 interceptions. The part that I really like about him, he's a tackler, man. He likes to be physical. 6'2", 220, or 6'3", 220, that speed he possesses. He gets downhill in a hurry. But he also can cover. Last season for South Carolina's defense, allowed just 60% completion percentage. No touchdowns. 4 interceptions and a QB rating when targeted of 37.1. I mean, this guy was going into the Combine, actually ranked a higher on Dane Brugler's big board. Now, he is not the say-all, be-all, but Dane Brugler had Nick Emmanwori higher than Malachi Starks on his big board entering the Combine, and after the Combine, it only solidified that. This is someone who is going to be very intriguing for Miami at pick 13. I think he's going to go anywhere between probably 12 to 25, and the Dolphins might scoop him up with pick number 13. And if we fast forwarded to April, and when Roger Goodell announced the pick for Miami at 13, and it was Nick Emmanwori, would you like the pick? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. Now, I will say this. I think Nick Emmanwori is a great ball player. Would I be upset with him at 13? Probably not. I actually wouldn't, because he is so freakishly gifted athletically. But I will plant my stance. I'll plant my flag right now. I still have Malachi Starks as my number 1 safety. It's not a consensus, though, by any means. There are some worlds where Malachi Starks is falling in drafts. I've seen Malachi Starks go 24, 25, 27 in some mock drafts. I've seen Jahdae Barron go in that same range of mid-20s in some mock drafts. Heck, I've seen Nick Emmanwori go between 24 and 27 in some mock drafts. The point is this. Those 3 DBs that can be a Jevon Holland replacement all play very different styles of games. Barron can play outside corner. He can play nickel. He can play your free safety roaming guy. Stark can play free safety, play strong safety, can play nickel. Emmanwori, mostly just a strong safety, won't really play the nickel, but pure safety. They're all different type of guys that all play on the back end. But there is a scenario, and this is a dream scenario in my opinion, where you go with offensive lineman or defensive lineman at pick number 13. Whether it be a Will Campbell, an Armand Membu, Kelvin Banks if they're there, to address the offensive line. Or get a Derek Harmon, a Walter Nolan, one of these other stud defensive linemen or edge rushers. But if one of those guys, like I mentioned, of Starks, Barron, Emmanwori, fall to that 25, 26, 27 range, I would package up to move up and back into the first round to draft one of them. The Dolphins have a boatload of draft capital this year. They have 10 picks, 1 first, 1 second, 1 third, 2 fourths, 2 fifths, 3 sevenths. I don't know what it would cost to move up from 48 to 25 or 27, but if it costs you a future second next year, heck, I would do it. 48 in a future second to move back up into the first to get Starks, Emmanwori, or Barron at 25, 26, 27. Those three are so damn good. You also get that rookie fifth-year option because they're a first-round pick. I'm telling you right now, if you go in the trenches at pick 13, but one of these stud 3 DBs on the back line are available in the mid-20s, late 20s, Chris Grier should be on the phones trying to trade up and get one of them to get that fifth-year option and solidify them in Miami. To me, that's a dream scenario, and I really hope Miami ultimately does it. All right, coming up in just a second, we're going to shift to ESPN's 2-round mock draft and see who Jordan Reid had the Dolphins selecting. But before we get into that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel because whether it be free agency this upcoming week where the Dolphins sign players or it's the NFL Draft, we will have you covered with videos on the latest. Hit that sub button. Join the channel right now. All right, in the ESPN 2-round mock draft, how about this, folks? Will Campbell, the offensive lineman from LSU, ends up sliding to Miami with the 13th overall pick. And as we are sitting here in early March, and you think about dream scenarios for the Miami Dolphins in late April, Will Campbell at number 13 probably is number 1. Like, I'm not kidding. Some fans might say Cam Ward at 13 is the number 1 dream. But that's so outlandish that, like, let's not even entertain it. But Will Campbell sliding to 13 is a real possibility. And if that happens, I would be sprinting to the podium for Will Campbell. Why could he slide to 13? Well, it's all because of his size, folks. And even when you look at his RAS, relatively athletic score, very good in terms of his speed, his vertical, his ability to fit into a nice little zone run blocking scheme Miami runs. The issue with Will Campbell, he's got T-Rex arms, 32.5 inches. You see the number in the top right. He's also not the biggest guy. He's an athletic offensive lineman for sure that can absolutely move, but he, I don't think, is no longer viewed as an offensive tackle. Listen, coming into the combine, everybody was talking about what is his arm length going to be because the benchmark usually is 34-inch arms. Well, he came at 32.5. That is very, very small, folks, in relative terms. And yeah, you can get away with 33.25, 33.5-inch arms in the NFL level, but under 33, that might view him from some teams out there strictly as an offensive guard. And if you were viewed strictly as an offensive guard, you will start to fall a little bit because guards just aren't valued as high as offensive tackles. But if he was available at 13, as I mentioned, you just have to make that pick. He was unbelievable at LSU. And he had a little bit of a down year this year in comparison to the years prior. But this is someone who came into LSU as a true freshman, 18 years old, and started at left tackle. You know how hard and rare it is to see an 18-year-old true freshman start at left tackle at a prestigious SEC Power 5 school? Yeah, it's not very often you find that. He was viewed as the best offensive lineman coming into this draft class after last year. He was viewed as the top offensive lineman for most of the process, but now after the combine, Armand Membu might have passed him due to his athletic traits in physical testing. Plus, he had a really good couple seasons at Missouri. The point is this, though. Even if Campbell slides, you have to sprint to the podium if he's there at 13. I do not think Will Campbell will be on the board at 13. I'll make that abundantly clear. I think Membu will go in the top 10, but teams like San Francisco need to address the offensive line. The Chicago Bears need to address the offensive line. They pick 10 and 11 respectively. Like, I would expect Will Campbell, if on the board at 10 or 11, to probably be drafted by either the Bears or the 49ers. But on an off chance that he slips by the two of them and he's there at 13 for Miami, yeah, that's a no-brainer. You take Will Campbell. If you could tell me right now he's on the board at 13, I would turn in my card right now. I seriously would. All right, let's move over to the second-round pick from Jordan Reid, and we go safety in this specific mock draft. A player that we have discussed in the past, Xavier Watts, the Notre Dame defensive back. I like Xavier Watts. We've talked about him in depth over the past couple of months as safety targets in the draft. Watts, experienced player at Notre Dame, had an extremely good past couple seasons for the Fighting Irish in 23 and 24. I think he can do it all. He can play the run. He was unbelievably good in pass coverage this past season. Now, with a grain of salt, when speaking on Xavier Watts, I wanted it clear. Notre Dame did not play a good schedule this year. They played a lot of bad teams. They did not play anyone good. The best team they might have played, well, it actually might be Texas A&M, and even they weren't really that good. Either way, put up good numbers when it comes to the pass coverage game. 16 PBUs. How ridiculous is that? 6 interceptions. Has a knack for finding the ball. I'm a fan of Watts, and I think he'd be a great day 2 target. All right, but when talking about drafting a safety for the Miami Dolphins, what should the Dolphins do? They will be drafting one in the first 3 rounds. I think that's almost guaranteed. But when should they do it? Should they do it in the first round? If you think they should, type the ones. If you think they should wait till day 2 to draft a guy like Watts, Andrew Makuba, Jonas Sanker, Kevin Winston, Sebastian Castro, some other safeties out there, type your 2s down in the comment section. Well, when it comes to day 2 safeties, I don't think many are better than Xavier Watts. I think Emmanwori, Malachi Starks, and Jahdae Barron all ultimately go in the first round. So then when you turn your attention to DBs that play safety in round 2, I would probably put Xavier Watts as my number 1 guy. I think Andrew Makuba from Texas is continuing to rise and is one of those other top options. Same as Kevin Winston, Jonas Sanker, and Sebastian Castro. But I think Watts is probably the top day 2 target at safety for the Dolphins. I would be no complaints from me if you drafted him 48th overall, assuming you went defensive line, offensive line in round 1, and made some other signings in free agency to where Watts isn't your number 1 starting safety, but would be your number 2 safety because you signed one in free agency. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Dolphins Today. Like I said off the top, make sure you follow me on Instagram. Our handle is Dolphins Today IG, putting out content over there outside of our YouTube page. So hit that sub button, join our Instagram page and our YouTube channel.